All right, I guess we are live.
Hello, hello.
How are you, Miguel?
I'm very excited to do some design systems today. So yeah, very excited.
Long time no see.
Yeah, totally.
Oh yes, I'm seeing it on my phone. We are live. All right, perfect.
Awesome.
Um, all right, let us know in the chat if you can hear us and see us well. And today I am joined by Miguel Gonzalez Sanchez, who has the right colors on his microphone. So I'm very proud.
Yes, I'm Coyote themed. So
Thank
yeah.
you for the branding. Um, all right, folks. Wait, I probably should look at the camera while I'm doing this, right? This is Armand, and welcome to Coyote's YouTube channel. Um, if you haven't heard us before, Coyote is an engineering school based in Berlin. We teach people software engineering in various forms over a couple of months, and the goal is to turn you into a software craftsperson. And we take this term really seriously. We believe software is a craft, and there are certain, not science, but guidelines you follow, including your heart when you do software. And that one of those principles is taking care in what you build and building it with delight and with a lot of thought. When someone looks at what you're building, they should think, well, a lot of thought has gone into this. And you should somehow instill a sense of respect. And one part of this is front-end engineering, obviously. We're dealing in generally in web development. One part of it is front-end engineering, and a huge part of front-end engineering is either building or working with design systems. So I am very much honored to have our esteemed guest, Miguel, here with us today. It's a really special occasion for me, and I'm very honored to have you here, Miguel. Welcome again.
I just have to return that. Yeah, I'm also very honored to be here. I think it's our first ever stream in human history. Armand and Miguel are getting together on stream. So yeah, and I really like what you said about software craftsmanship. I always try to compare it to a garden or to planting something. Often you see, especially in the software industry, people are planting something and just leaving it. And obviously, that's not sustainable. And I believe that software needs to be maintained like a garden, and you need to take care of it. Otherwise, it will not look great. So yeah.
I think that that's a nice analogy. It actually makes a lot of sense. Uh, it requires tending, and not only like, I don't know, like once a year or something, but like regular tending. And it's one of the more difficult aspects of being a software engineer, right? Like you always incur technical debt, and you want to clean it up in the next sprint, and the next sprint becomes next spring, and next spring becomes
Yeah.
furthermore another spring, and like 2 years down the line you still live with that bloatware.
Let's rename sprints to springs.
Right. I mean,
And we work in seasons. You know?
that's kind of like what shape up does, right? Like at Basecamp they have the shape up methodology, and what they
Mhm.
do is to kind of have 6 weeks sprints, like combine two of those,
Mhm.
and that's a season. So hey Vigo, how are you doing? It's so nice to see you. I actually don't know the stream settings and what the latency is between us and
Mhm.
the actual stream, but I hope it's only a couple of seconds. Um, nice. Well, yeah, looks like we're almost real time. Very good. So, Miguel, how do we know one another?
We.
Yes, you and
Well,
I.
It's a very good question. Actually, we work for the same course, I think, for Neo, and we came into acquaintance actually quite recently. So it's not that we are like long. We know each other like for, remember 20 years ago, but actually quite recently. Yeah.
What is December?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, December.
December something, right?
November, December. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the story is actually really nice. We wanted to expand our team at Neol, which is also, of course, like one of the hosts of this show. Neol is how do we define Neol? We've been through so many stages. I really have a difficulty in defining what we do. We started as a talent marketplace, and then we thought that's not really reflecting what we stand for. So we kind of wanted to change it, and now we are a platform where we connect people, and that's very broad, but I think purposefully so. We want to connect people with meaningful challenges, work that they would love to work on, that would give them the opportunity to do their best work of their lives. And we have recently launched a new enterprise product to bring companies and their part-time talent together in a new AI-driven platform where it's a little bit easier than regular means to find the right person for the right challenge. Because what we figured out in the creative world especially, it is important to find the right person, and that's not only based on skill, but also you want that person to pour their soul into your project. That's how you can achieve the best outcome. And we have acknowledged this, and we're building features and products, especially again powered by AI, to fulfill this purpose. And we wanted to expand the team. We were looking for a lead engineer who has a little bit more experience on front end, and we fortunately met with Miguel and wanted to work together. And I'm very happy to announce that tomorrow is Miguel's first day at Neol, and that's like super, super nice. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. So welcome to the team.
Yeah, I'm grateful to join. And you say front end. I'm personally actually not a fan of that term anymore, because it has some connotation of someone being disconnected from the backend, which is also a term I don't like anymore. But I try to think nowadays in terms of like building experiences, and you're experiencing something, even if people like it or not. We are always part of an experience, and looking through this lens, to me at least, it helps me, for example, building my games a bit easier than thinking of like UI, mechanics, and things like that. Yeah.
So speaking of which, Miguel is also a streamer, a YouTuber, also a game developer, and also a teacher. Would you like to talk a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I actually never thought of myself as a teacher, but at some point I realized, oh, actually I'm teaching a lot, so I guess that qualifies me. And I have my YouTube channel that I started in 2020. It's BitBrain Dev on YouTube. And on there, mostly I share the progress on game development, my approach, and also my techniques. And I also try to practice video editing and video production with it, and maybe a bit of storytelling as well. But yeah, and I build games in my free time. I love to participate in game jams, which are effectively hackathons, but the idea is rather than building some cool app or some website, you build a game in 48 hours or 72 hours. And I'm doing this now for like 10 years. The game development stuff, but it's more like a hobby of mine. I do it not like it's not that I do this as a main job. There I'm more full stack development and also tech leadership. Yeah.
So you're doing game development for 10 years, and I just watched a stream of yours during one of these like gaming events where you created a game in 2 days. Actually, not even 2 days. Like, was it like 8 hours of stream or something like that?
Yeah, I think the total stream time was 11 hours.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spread over 2 days. And that was crazy, like to create something from scratch. I mean, it's not really our topic, but it's also a topic of interest. Like, I want to ask about game development. In fact, you wouldn't believe it, but this morning I talked to a game developer who wanted to be a web developer and wanted to join Coyote as the course, and asked me if they could develop a game as their course project, a term project. And I said, that would be really difficult, because I believe when it comes to building games, you have to worry about the UI, as you said, like game mechanics, sometimes the engine. But the business logic of building a game is also very difficult. To me, it feels like everything
different.
In a giant loop, one single function, and everything has to happen there, even if you're using object-oriented programming. Do you use OOP in developing games?
It's a great question. I use OOP, but more in the traditional sense, how it was, I think, meant to be. Because people nowadays associate OOP with inheritance. And then they attach the negative sides of inheritance to OOP and say OOP is bad. But I also think composition is also part of OOP when you look at the original statement. That I'm sorry, I can't actually recite it now. My memory is failing me, but composition is an absolute part of OOP. And through composition, I'm using a Godot engine, which is node-based. And actually, Vue 3 has quite a few similarities to Godot with its signaling or emit system. Godot has the same thing. And you realize as you build these small little building blocks, suddenly, magically, your game comes to life. And when you show it to someone who is not familiar with your topic, the person is like, how are you doing this? But when you look at each component, each little Lego brick, it's super simple. You look at it, it's like, I can do this. So I can just say, like, if you look at something that looks very complicated, its complexity comes actually from the simplicity of its parts that work together.
Well, can you remember to recite that sentence again? I think that was very important.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if I do. Yeah.
Its simplicity comes.
Its complexity comes from the simplicity of its parts.
Its complexity comes from the simplicity of its parts. That sounds like a definition of a design system to me.
There we go.
So maybe that could be a segue to our actual conversation today. I mean, game development is fascinating, and that's also actually how I started as a kid to write software by building games. In fact, but I never built like any games with any UI, like a world like that you're building, using an engine. I always built more casual games. I think the most complex UI I ever built in a game was card games, and you didn't really need a game engine to do that. So I'm fascinated by game development, but I really like that description, and I think that fundamentally like underlines everything we do at software engineering. One thing to note is object-oriented systems model the world around us. And our goal is to, in life, our goal is to build more and more complex systems out of small parts, and like parts that could work independently, like, I don't know, government units, company departments or teams, teams of people. And we somehow combine them to build bigger and bigger systems. And to me, that's why object-oriented programming is really natural in building software, because like it literally mimics life. So when it comes to design systems, I feel like there should be a reflection of this principle. Inherently, UI development, in my experience at least, is very convoluted. It's almost like everything happens imperatively. And if you write, we're going to discuss this a lot today, but if you write haphazard CSS, it also does not really help you in like organizing your code into reusable parts, because that's kind of like the largest premise of object-oriented systems, right? Like you have a building block and then you can reuse it in multiple different orientations. And then the intelligence, the design is in that organization of how you bring those building blocks together and like come up with real creative uses of those building blocks, just like electronic circuits. And when it comes to design systems, I think this is one of the biggest missed points, I would say. A lot of people build or use design systems to have something of their own. I think it suffers a lot from not invented here syndrome, NIH, where every company goes on to create their own design system. And this is something I guess we're going to look into real soon. But I guess like they're kind of missing the bigger point. Are you able to solve extremely complex problems by reusing simple building blocks?
It's actually a good question, right? Aman, why would you need a design system? I always like to play devil's advocate with things. Although I might not have the opinion, I like to ask myself, okay, let's pretend to be someone who dislikes design systems, and let's just build everything without design systems and just try to take it to an extreme and see, okay, what are actually the worst things that could happen? And are these worst things, are these actually that bad? Sometimes the answer can be, you don't need a design system. For example, if you build a little blog and it takes you, let's say, 2 hours of coding just to build the design and the content, you don't need a design system. It's literally not really needed. But I think this should be like always the first question before you even start building a design system. Yeah, ask yourself, do you actually need one? That would be my suggestion.
I think that's a very good question. And do you need one? Or what is a design system? What is the purpose? Why are you looking into using one? Maybe we should start with that definition. To me, it stands for, again, reusable components, UI components that you can like literally React files or Vue.js components, right? Or whatever framework you're using, or a single JavaScript file that includes behavior. It should be reusable in both design, like UI, and in code. So I can build multiple different screens out of using that component, and I don't have to rewrite its functionality. I can just like use it, just call it as a function, as a class, whatever, and it should work. That's the
so basically time saving, right? This is like your definition here. We save coding time. Yeah,
coding time and designing time, because it also should give you a coherent look. And probably like if you're using a design system, you probably have like multiple engineers, maybe 10, maybe 20, in multiple teams, multiple products, maybe different repositories, and you want similar looks in those repositories, in those projects. And a very good way of achieving similar looks is by reusing design. But also, I think this is where most design systems break down. Like a lot of the people just stop at reusable components, and they don't develop this understanding or library of patterns, repeating designs that you can build with these components. Like, how do you combine a drop-down and a text input and the submit button, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that is a repeated pattern for a popover that opens when you click a button. Like you let's say that's the filter options, sort and filter and then apply. So that should become a design pattern in terms of actual design, not in terms of code. It should become a pattern in design that you can
concept.
reapply. Yeah. I was working at a huge enterprise a couple of years ago, and this was the biggest pain point. We had an extensive design system, maybe like 150 components, but no one actually took the time to document down how they work together. So when you want to build a new screen, you have all these components, but you just don't know what is the best way to put them together. What is
like a Lego?
Right.
It's like a Lego. Imagine you have you need to assemble a Lego shelf, but they forgot to include the manual. And you have all the parts, and the parts are the components. What are you going to do? Well, you need to call IKEA and say, "Hey, I need the thing." And this is what I've heard in my teams countless of times. There's a new feature, and for every new feature, the first thing that comes up is, "Well, we can't start development on this because it's missing the designs."
Yeah.
Like the behavior is described. We know which components we need. We know what the components do when you click them. But we cannot start development because I don't know how it's going to look. And then the question is, okay, why does then a designer need to remember the rules, compose it together, and send over a screenshot? Like, why can't a design system do this? And I think a design system can be capable of doing this.
And that is like, again, the biggest thing for me. And something that I'm trying to instill. And at that company, I put together a force of several tens of front-end engineers just to document this. Like, let's put together different uses. First, let's document what we have right now. And then sit with a design team and create new ones if we have some missing, so that the product developers or product owners in the future can design their own UIs that will look and behave exactly like other parts of the platform. So it's going to feel native to everyone, and it's not going to, break the user experience or expectations. And also, it won't require a designer, because
I think you said something
very difficult to find.
Sorry. I think you said something very important there. You mentioned the word product owner. Are you in the opinion that most companies understand that the design system is not just for designers and engineers, but also for product?
I mean, that's kind of like the entire point, right? These should be as democratic as possible. Developing UI, developing code should be as democratic as possible. And one step of that is to kind of like help with the limitation of specific designers. What you can do is, if you open up your design methodologies and approaches and different, again, patterns, everyone in the team can put together a screen. And then, of course, like if it's outrageous, you could always have a designer to come in and help, or that designer could maybe redesign that screen or do some touches. But that should be at maybe a review stage. And this also helps with like testing with users instead of wireframes and click dummies. If you can put together something from your design system quickly, you can show it to your real users to get their opinions on the next product that you're building. So like, there are a lot of different aspects of this. And unfortunately, we can never get there. Like, all we talk about are the list of components. And that's just it. It's just a list of components. It's not a design system. There's like, I don't know, there's color use. Maybe we're gonna have time to talk about color. I know you're very passionate about color, so am I.
Oh yes.
It's like the math behind it is mind-boggling, but also
Remember, color is relative. Yeah.
what does it mean?
Oh,
Color is relative.
because our brains can be tricked. Our brains are actually quite, they can be manipulated. And the problem is people are discussing color in design systems in scientific terms. They're like, oh, this is what a color is. This is what it does. But often people misunderstand that color is perceived differently depending on the relationship to other colors.
Right.
A great example that frustrates me, and I see it all over the place on all the websites on the planet, drop shadow. People use basically black and add an alpha value and say, well, it's a shadow, so a shadow is dark. But when you look at how the eye perceives shadow, it's actually color shifted, and it's actually quietly a bit like hue shifted, and it's not necessarily like black. But I see it all over the place because people don't necessarily think about how shadow actually behaves in the real world.
Right.
Just to give an example. Yeah. Sorry, I don't want to like pull the topic to color. I'm very passionate about it, but yeah.
And that's a great example. And I think like what makes great design is these little touches that a lot of people just like take for granted. You don't even see it, and that's kind of on purpose. Like if you don't feel there's something on the screen, if it feels native to you, like then that's the best design. That you don't have to learn anything. Again, we can talk more about color, but my biggest gripe with color in design systems is like they just give you, I don't know, red 700, red 800, like from 0 to 1000 for like all major colors. And then they're like, well, customize these if you like to have different colors. And in fact, this week on Thursday, I'm going to have a conference talk, which I guess will be also streamed live, about this, like rethinking colors in design systems in CSS and like better ways of approaching color. We have now really fancy ways in CSS, like OKLCH, to build different colors from, or combining different colors. And I, of course, was not satisfied with them. I came up with my own mechanism of building colors based on
sounds very interesting.
What my designers are building. Maybe like in our future episodes, we can also talk about that. But I guess we all miss this aspect of design systems. It's, again, not just a set of components. It's not a set of colors. It's not only limiting your options. But the biggest thing is it gives you a cohesive design that you can reuse. If you're not reusing it, you're doing it wrong. And I know it's very difficult to reuse design. Almost everyone, every designer, every product owner will say, yeah, I understand these are the components that we have, but I need something special here. And then, you really? I don't think you do. You don't need a special design there. Or if you're really sure that there needs to be something special there, why not discuss that globally with the design teams as well? And maybe that's going to be part of our design system, And
also, maybe how can you change it, right? It should be part of the design system.
Yeah.
Like a maintainer guide. Like, this is how you propose changes. It should be part of the design system. Yeah.
Right. And in fact, at that company, we actually had a rule. It's really funny. So we had front-end engineers, and then we had full-stack engineers who were practically back-end engineers. And the ratio was like 20 to 1, 20 back-end engineers or full-stack engineers to 1 front-end engineer. So the front-end team at some point went crazy and said, no backend engineer in the company will ever write a single line of CSS. Like if you want to build UI, you can, but only by reusing the components that we built for you. You cannot adjust their spacing, adjust their colors beyond the props that we give you in React. And that's all. Like if you really believe, if your product team really believes you need some specific design, some new design, or some CSS changes, you have to come to us. And we're going to probably reject your request or redirect you to the design team so that that can be part of like the original spec. And that was how we were able to kind of combat the onslaught of backend engineers trying to write front end. The design system really helps there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's been your experience. Usually, at least that's what I saw. People who tag themselves as backend engineers don't really want to work with front end or components or CSS. I think it's a little bit of a shame. Like they're missing out on a lot. I like the brain exercise the CSS gives me.
I think in my experience from what I've witnessed so far, a big problem is are not like the lack of abstractions, but the wrong abstractions.
Yeah.
Where if you have, I don't know, like everybody knows Tetris, right? And sometimes you cannot fit it correctly in, and then you have these little white squares or these blank squares, and you know it like, if I just have the right part. And if you notice this when you implement UIs or you even discuss a feature, and you are like, a common situation is, we need this new feature, and it's very customized for the user. This will make us the most money for the buck because this is like exactly what the user needs. But we can't reuse any of our components because they're not really doing the right thing. Question is, okay, why can't we compose them in a way that they can? Like clearly, it shows that like we abstracted them wrong. Or a good example I see is in many design systems, you have a button, and then a button has an icon as part of its component. And then there are some use cases where, we don't want an icon, we want something else. And then you need to create a new variant of that icon, of that button. Yeah. And you have these like very bloated components that are effectively inheritance, not composition. And and this is how I see like design systems can get quite bloated and have lots of unused components that are only useful for one particular flow.
Now that you mentioned it, I also thought of like different reasons for why I would like to use a design system instead of a custom UI, right? I guess if you're going to build a custom UI just by using browser components, that kind of makes sense because accessibility comes bundled with it. So a lot of the people think accessibility is for people with disabilities, but that's actually not true. And you don't really realize it, but you sometimes just want to use your keyboard when you're navigating the screen. And you might sometimes want to see colors in a certain way. For example, it's a very dumb example, but it's a very good one. I was working for a company once, and the CEO was very young and had a lot of focus problems. And he read somewhere that if he used his phone in black and white with no motion, his usage patterns would change, and he would, not work on his phone that much, and like would have more focus and so on. And this is something operating systems are really good at. Like iOS, macOS, Windows. You wouldn't believe it, but even Windows has a lot of accessibility features built in. And
I have to use Windows at the moment for streaming, so yes.
So the point is, like, these features are also most probably inside your browser. And if you use a custom UI, like for a dropdown or a calendar picker or whatever input box, you are probably breaking someone's experience. And that someone is like maybe 10, 15, 20% of the population, if not more. And that just sucks. Like, who do you think you are as a website owner that you can decide that a user just for browsing your site needs to learn how a dropdown works? And when they start typing in like the first couple of letters, your dropdown doesn't scroll and doesn't give you the right item. Or here's another advanced scenario. I'm not sure if you ever had to build this one, but it's really a nightmare. So it's very straightforward. You build a dropdown, and everyone knows when you start typing in a dropdown, you need to find the matches, right? Like I do this with country codes all the time. I write GER, Germany, to find Germany in the list. That's great. But the timeout periods between macOS and Windows are different for this dropdown to reset back so you can type something else. So what if you wanted to write France, like G and F are next to one another, E and R are next to one another. So instead of typing France, you type GER. Will you delete them with a backspace, or will you wait and start typing again? How many seconds do you want to wait? And these are like learned behaviors based on an operating system. And if you're using your own dropdown, you're just breaking it.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. Like it's, I don't know. This is maybe like not exactly a topic that we should discuss right now, but it's a lot of frustration for me. A lot of developers think that they can do a great job in replicating a UI, but it just doesn't work like that. Think of, for example, alt text or the title attribute, I guess. Like when you hover an element, it shows a tiny popover, and you can write something there. The onset and offset timeouts for that thing as well is something in your muscle memory, and you should use it instead of building your own. And if you need a picture or a different layout for that information popover, you should think twice. Like, why do I need this? Why can I not use the browser built-in feature to do this?
It's actually even CSS, right? In its core, what people often don't realize is CSS is declarative, and what you do is you forward instructions to the browser engine to do the rendering for you. But often people choose to just hack everything in JavaScript, which can be very nice for features that CSS doesn't support. But trust me, CSS nowadays is extremely powerful, and you can even do 3D. But often people do JavaScript, and over time you have all this JavaScript that you actually don't need anymore. I remember on Google I/O, I forgot exactly the number or the company, but they actually replaced some of the screen transition logic with a new CSS, and they deleted over 1 million lines of JavaScript, which is like insane to me.
How is it possible? How do you mean 1 million?
I think it was like 1 million or 100,000. I think it was like a very, very high number. It's on the official Google I/O talk on web APIs and web modern web, and they show the use case where they migrated over to just raw CSS declarations, because that wasn't supported 10 years ago. So that was like probably old jQuery code even. But that's the point. It's less code you have to maintain, more things that will be maintained for you by the operating system and browser maintainers. Thousands of people suddenly take care of that behavior instead of you having to take care of it. And yeah, this is why I would always prefer writing something in CSS over JavaScript when it comes to like animations and experience.
Yep. There's a lot to talk about in terms of design systems and CSS implementation. And I'm actually very happy that, again, we met and we're going to work together in hopefully the next couple of years. Yeah. So maybe we should start talking about existing design systems. The goal
Mhm.
for the audience was like to talk about what design systems are, why we use them, how we build them, what is our criteria for using or like choosing a design system, and finally, hopefully, either today or maybe in the future episodes, start building one ourselves. And this is a fun activity we do at Neol. We are, I guess, on the third iteration of our design system. We have built it twice in React, and we're practically rebuilding it a third time in Vue.js, because we're kind of like switching over to Vue.js now. And that's a shocker, I know, but I'm very happy that finally, in a company that I work for, we are free to use Vue.js, which is like my favorite framework.
I love it.
To use one.
Coming from, I'm quite new to it. I actually never used it before, like this year. But it's very similar to Godot in terms of its approach and its what's the word? Its principles to use the building blocks that are already there rather than coming up with some crazy thing. Sorry. For people who like React, I would have said something now, but yeah, I refrain from doing so.
Well, I mean, I think React is an anomaly in front-end engineering. We had a really nice path, right? Like we had no frameworks, and then there was, what was it called? There was something that Objective J and something coffee. Like they no. I guess in around 2006, 2007, they came up with a language that looks like Objective C, but for JavaScript. And they released an application framework to build. I actually really cappuccino or something. I don't know if anyone knows in the chat, please let us know. It was really, really nice. Like it had all the right abstractions of practically a modern design system of like Windows even, because it kind of like you could maybe build an operating system in it in terms of design. It had all the components of an operating system. And then it was very bloated, worked really slowly. And then we had Next.js and as a kind of a framework, and maybe Angular was really a very good step forward. It was like magic.
Yeah, it was the first time that like something just happened, and we're like, wait, I don't have to like write this myself with Ajax. What?
Yeah. And in the meantime, we had Backbone, which was very imperative, not as declarative, and also questionable taste in software design. Back at the time, I was using Google Closure Library, and it also had amazing abstractions. It's practically what Google Docs, Google Maps, and like all of Google, including Gmail, was built on. It was great as a JavaScript library. So like, but it was still also very much 80s style of UI programming, like Visual C++ kind of stuff. And then there was again Angular, and I thought we would be getting more and more declarative, more and more progressive, but then we got something like React. I think that was a huge step back in that direction. The first version introduced something like JSX, which was something we didn't really need. My personal take. Don't shout at me. Don't even at me for this. And the second version brought us functional components that are actually not functional because they have a lot of side effects. That Objective-J and Cappuccino. Yes, thank you very much. Did I know the name right? I think the name was right. So like it had a lot of side effects that was hidden in the code. Not even like visible, like calling use effect multiple times gives you different things. Or this function is actually re-rendered and executed every single time there's a change. These are patterns that didn't exist in our life before. So I think that was a step back. And then there came Vue.js, which was another step forward, especially with the second version, to more declarative programming. And I also have another conference talk about this. I'm not actually sure if they released the recording on YouTube.
I haven't seen it, but
I have a library called Vuelve. Do you know Spanish? You must know Spanish, right?
yeah, a bit, yeah.
Do you know what Vuelve means?
Well, wasn't it? Is it not like the color? But yeah, or is it like some verb? I forgot.
Yeah, I think it means come back or return or something like that.
Return.
Yeah, Vuelve. Of course, like it has the Vue name in it, and like if you're building a library for Vue, you have to use it in the name. So we spent an entire stream online finding good names for the library, but it's a library that allows you to write declarative composables for Vue 3, because it has this idea of composables, but it's as ugly as some other framework called React. It uses the same concept of hooks and so on, which is like absolutely unnecessary in Vue.js. So I kind of wrote a simple library to convert the already declarative syntax of Vue 2, like with the watch, computed, declarations, methods, and so on. And so you can build those composables without the template and anything. Just use them as composables to bring Vue 2 back. Hence the name comeback Vue 2, Vue 2. But anyway, so like that was a step forward, and then maybe Vue 3 was another step back. And I'm very happy that the community is resisting changing to Vue 3. But I also believe it's maybe with Svelte, I think it's a little bit better than Svelte because it's declarative again. Like you have different blocks of methods, computed, watch, and so on. And with the single file components, of course, that is just like the most beautiful thing ever.
I love it. It's locality of behavior. I love the locality principle.
Yeah.
And when, for example, people discuss like clean code, which I used to be a extreme what's the word, like evangelist of clean code. When I read the book and was like, this is the best clean code, one line per method, or one method per line. And once you have a production incident as an engineer, and you click through your 51st file, and you try to figure out what is going on, you realize that actually there's a problem. And what the problem is, people forgot about the locality principle, or the concept that things should be like gravity around concepts, should be like bundled together. And I think Vue is really embracing that with their single file concept. You want to go to the button, Vue file. There you go. And there's your button. Nowhere else, just there. Oh, sorry.
And what I love about it is the locality of CSS, right? Because everyone is going nuts in the CSS world about, oh, but if I write this, like I'm going to break the rest of my page. And they came up with tons of different solutions for that, especially in the React world. Like there are a shit ton of CSS and JS frameworks out there. And they kind of miss the entire point of CSS, which is its cascading nature, its inheritance, which is extremely powerful in building design systems. And maybe this is something that we're going to discuss, but one principle that I have for design systems is you are not allowed to write any size properties anywhere, like margins, paddings. You're not allowed to define them on paragraphs or headings in your components. They have to be defined at a much higher level abstraction, or maybe at the core. So you never think about those ever. Like you just bring together components and they fit. And if they don't, that's the problem of your design. It's not the problem of the design system. So you can never have like custom margins and paddings and so on.
Oh, and even with the powerful sibling operator in CSS, you can even define rules like, oh, when you have a heading with this together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the single most, maybe I'm exaggerating, thing I love building in CSS is overhead titles or sur titles. Those small all caps strings that you put over H1s that talk about like introduction to design systems is H1. So normally H1 has a huge margin top to give it enough space after whatever there is on the screen. But of course, just in this specific case, when you have an overhead line, it needs to sit flush with the H1. So this is how you build it with the sibling operator. You say if the H1 comes after this thing, then it's not going to have a margin top.
Yeah.
Then it is the overhead, whatever it's called. Like, I guess we call it overline. Sometimes we call it surtitle. It's surtitle will adopt that margin, and it's different for H2. It's different for H3. It's gonna like inherit those. So I love this nature of CSS, and single file components practically give you this out of the box, this isolation. And it's such a simple solution. You just write style scoped, and that style declaration is specific for that component only. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, and there are edge cases, right, where you need to use module and you need to. But I think when you have to like fall back on module because of specific, I can't pronounce the word specificity. I think people often then forgot about using CSS layers, which is, I think, a very powerful concept. That I think we can maybe also chat about this. When you build a design system, you should embrace layers. It can be quite powerful. Yeah.
Yes, I think this is something we're going to discuss when we get to programming, because right now we have this feature of CSS layers, and we can really use it to build better isolation, better abstraction for our components. Because obviously your end users who are developers might want to override some of the choices that you made in the design system. So Mardo Dardo says, as a beginner now, I often find myself asked, but why, every time I learn something in React? This honestly is my experience as well. And I'm not a
why?
beginner. Yeah. So I guess like it has
this doesn't go away. It never goes away.
It's I'm not sure if we're able to find it, but there was this XKCD comic, what the fucks per minute. When you're doing code reviews, the quality of the code in a code review you can understand by just hearing the number of what the fucks per minute from the reviewer. And yeah,
which is never zero.
Yes, and in React world for me it's quite big. I guess it's now a safe place to talk like this about React.
Yeah.
And okay, before we move on, React has a new compiler. Did you hear the news?
I've heard about it. Apparently everything is faster now, but I haven't seen the details.
I guess they're trying to reduce the number of re-renders in components, because finally someone understood that it's actually not a great way to build a UI. And they have written a compiler that converts your React code into actual reactive parts so that they don't have to render entire components. At least this was my understanding. Yeah, I mean, of course, it's straightforward to implement as a Babel plugin. I guess it doesn't change the nature of what it does, but like this is like, I don't know. I really don't understand it. The first time I saw React, I think, was in 2014 or 2015, I guess. And back then it was tasteless but okay. And now I don't know. Now I have completely different opinions on the
So
actual state it has.
so to me, like, this is something that I realized a couple years ago, but often I, for example, get asked like, "Oh, are you a front-end engineer? Are you a back-end engineer? Are you a full stack?" And nowadays, I'm thinking, well, I'm an engineer who uses tools,
Right.
and I think there's a very, very good use case even for modern React, like the React that it is today. I think there's a very, very good specific use case for that tool, and it's like the perfect tool for that thing. But I also think we shouldn't try, to treat everything as a nail, and React is the hammer. But yeah, what tool do we want to use in our garden shed for our garden to use today? And I think this question we as a good engineer, and to really foster this craftsmanship, always
Yeah.
ask yourself, what are the tools that I want to use for this particular challenge or this particular problem, rather than, oh, I should use this golden hammer because it's so shiny.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And let me say this before we move on. For me, it even started with the name when it was very clear from the first moment that it's not reactive, the library. It's not reactive at all. That's not what reactive means. Reactive is solid JS. Solid JS is reactive. Vue.js is reactive.
Yes.
React is not reactive. And then it's in the name. Like, they call it React as if it's reactive, but it's not reactive. So to me, the lies started with the name, and I just I'm using it all the time. Of course, I've built more than maybe 50, 60 production projects with React, but like I just can never get myself on terms with the name. So reactive.
How would you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Please.
I wanted to ask, how would you have called it if you were the creator of React? What would be your name for that?
Pick any other name. Like, this is branding. Someone called it Vue because it sounded like Vue. So find another word that sounds like reactive. So there's a very good. Hi, Tamai. There's a very good question. What is reactive for you? Maybe we should talk a little bit about this. To me, a reactive system is smart. It knows its dependencies on its own, and it doesn't require you any imperative instruction, or it doesn't require you to write any imperative instruction to either set up those dependencies or execute those dependencies. And in React, what happens is it's so mind-boggling. It re-renders all the components all the time, and also, like, so it doesn't know when to re-render them, and also it asks you to define those dependencies when you're using hooks manually. And this is not reactive. Like, take Solid or take Vue.js. They don't do this craziness. Like, whenever in Vue.js, whenever you declare a computed variable, whatever variable you use inside it already knows it. And when any of those variables change, it reruns your computed variable function, and only once. Not only that, there is no concept of a re-render, because it knows, because it's tracking these things. So
I love computed.
Yeah, me too. Like, you're gonna see tomorrow in our code base, there's a very good use of computed variables, because it really simplifies a lot, because it's the declarative nature of things.
Yeah.
But
especially, like, you can use computed with stores, and then you can for example, use the explode operator and then have a computed property from a store, but you can just treat it. It's quite powerful.
Yes. So reactivity on this regard, I think, is like Excel or Google Sheets, right? You have a formula that maybe sums up two different cells. You update one and it updates the cell automatically, regardless of like the complexity of your equations. The application knows all of the dependencies of each node on one another and just computes those dependencies. So, this is my problem with reactivity. So anyway, yes, it's been actually more than an hour since we started.
Really? Oh,
That's crazy.
I'm just chilling. I'm just enjoying our time.
Should we start looking at a couple of examples of design
Yeah,
systems?
I would love to. Yes, let's do it.
Now, before the stream, you shared a very good webpage with me, designsystemsrepo.com. I don't know, like for the audience, we haven't really scripted any of this. We just said we're going to get together and talk about design systems and maybe build one. Then we talked about this multiple times. It's not like we didn't spend time on this. We did, but we didn't script it. This was the extent of our conversation. Yeah. So right before the stream, Miguel came up with this very good repository that brings together all the design systems in the world, I guess. So maybe we can look at a couple of examples and talk about our experiences and preferences with each one. I guess like I have used a couple of design systems so far, and I can talk about my experiences there. I'm sure you can also do the same, and we can look into some of the details they offer, because one of the bigger problems is when you're going to start out, are you going to start from scratch, or are you going to adopt a design system and customize it, or just adopt a design system and use it? And if that's the case, how do you pick one? Like what do you take into account to pick a design system? And if you're going to start from scratch, you obviously need to start with a couple of examples. So even for those examples, you need to pick design systems, like which one are you going to follow? And I think that's kind of important in any of these decisions, whichever way you go. So yeah, I guess we can. I hope I'm gonna do this right. So let's do this. Okay, now, very good. Very, very good. Design Systems Gallery. This is my browser. I'm sharing my screen now. This is actually really fun. I love it. Love it very much. This looks like a great stream already. Almost professional, right? We're almost like YouTubers. Okay,
if only.
guide me on the screen, and I'm going to
yes.
Tell me to click.
So when you scroll down a bit, there is this very colorful, futuristic design system on the left. So when you scroll down a bit,
is this Wanda?
It's called Wanda. Yes.
Yeah.
When you open that one up,
very interesting. This is
they call it Wonderflow.
So
and I like
Wanda. So like React could have a similar name.
Yes, it could be called Wonder. Like you're always wondering what's happening.
Ooh, I like this.
Write that down. Meta, write that down for React 30.
But come on, like this is exactly what I meant.
Yes.
Should we start with this? So here's my try. Like this doesn't work. Never ever do this in a design system. A design system is not meant to give you shades of color, like 100, 200 different shades. It's not. It is supposed to give you maybe like 4 main colors, 3 or 4, and maybe 2 or 3 shades. And those shades are not specific to those colors. Like those shades should be replicated across all the different colors in your design system. Because why are you going to have a shade? Like you probably want a shade because like it's going to be a hover color, right? But it's going to be a hover, whether it's a button or an alert or a warning sign. So whether it's green, blue, or yellow or red, it's going to have the same shade. And
yeah, it's a function. It's a
yes,
should I say, like a computed property, not hard coded.
Exactly. And that is a problem when I look at these Indigo 30, 40, 50. The question that a developer would have is, okay, I see this button is Indigo, but what is the shade for the hover? Is it 40 or is it 50? Is it 60? How would I know? I would have to
And
look
why?
at yeah. Why do I care about that? Like, I should just care about it so much so that it's Indigo and not mint, right? The rest should be inside the design system, inside that button, or if it's like hover, it's a global statement. But like when you hover over something, it goes by 2 shades. It goes down by 2 shades, goes to black, or gets more saturated. Like that should be a function of color. And this is essentially my entire talk that I'm gonna do on Thursday. This is what I want to talk about. Like, this is not okay. And for me, this is a disqualifier. Like, if I see this in a design system, it gives me Indigo 10, Indigo 20. I'm thinking they're like, this is kind of a utility CSS kind of approach, like Tailwind.
Yes.
They give you all of these things and you use whatever you like. But in fact, you should either use like Indigo 10, like shades of 10, 40, and 60 maybe. And the other shades you shouldn't use. And which shade you use should be based on the function, again, whether it's a hover or click or active, or background maybe. Like if you use this as a background, maybe it's going to be Indigo 1. And if it's inverted, it's going to be Indigo 60, for example. Anyway, all right. Guide me. Where do I click next?
So they have a section about motion, which is actually quite interesting because most design systems that are like public don't have this. And I like this animation. It's quite cool.
Is this a static animation? It's not moving, right? Come on.
Yeah.
I thought it would be some of those like WebGL craziness.
Yeah, interactive. Yeah, it's right. Unfortunately not. When you scroll down a bit.
Okay.
Yes. Where is it? That's not what I saw. Give me a second. You see, it's not scripted. It's not scripted because I literally let me see. So motion.
This is exactly what I was talking about. Like, they give you this and they're saying, hey, you can actually customize it.
Yes.
But like, no, I don't want to have this. This is like, this is wrong.
And the reason why I think it's a good example, right? It's because like showing just like, oh, here's the perfect design system. So this requires work all the time from people who want to use this design system. Yes. It's very customizable. It's very flexible. But effectively, what you are doing, you defer the decision how something should be built to the developer alone. Like the developer alone, remember what we talked about earlier, right? We want to have a democratic way. And once a decision is made, that decision should be only changeable via the democratic approach. But what this does, it gives the developer the power to make the decision alone. And what you then have in production is very inconsistent UIs. Because the tool makes it very easy to not, it makes it very easy to make these decisions alone.
Yeah, like you can pick the wrong color. Like they are blaming regular CSS, saying like we have 50 shades of blue on our web page, but this is just reducing it to 10. That's what it does.
Yes.
Like instead of 50, you now have 10 shades of blue. Where one. Okay, we have components.
Yes.
I wonder.
And they just show how they work. Yeah. But, it's more like a demo kind of thing.
But this is very good. I love it. Like, of course, you don't see it on screen sharing, but when I click this, a native dropdown opens. Oh. So this is very good. I love this.
With keyboard.
Yes.
support.
Of course,
Nice.
like this is totally native. So they just give you the look in CSS. This is how dropdowns should be built. Like fight your designers, fight your product managers if they want to build custom looking dropdowns. It's just not a good idea. Not clickable.
Yeah. That was like the only thing in this system that I found interesting to talk about. If you want, we can just explore the page further, but
keyboard navigatable. I love this.
Yeah.
This is really good. Yep. Some wonderful customers enjoying Venda. All right, it's open source. I mean, I generally like it, except for the colors, I guess.
Yeah. Another system I wanted to show you, because I find it quite interesting, it's very opinionated, is the Atlassian design system further down.
Yes, let's talk about it. Where is it?
Extremely opinionated.
Here,
the blue
this
one there.
Right?
Yes. So for people who might be unfamiliar, so design systems had some history. So there was like atomic design systems with atoms, molecules, and organisms. And at some point, some people thought it would be a good idea to have the concept of like design tokens. And then the creator of atomic design thought, oh, we basically call them not tokens, but ions or something like that, which is basically the small thing, not atoms. But basically in a lot of design systems, you see these terms like tokens, but they're basically properties or variables, right? And this is like what Aman also showed earlier. And they have a very interesting approach in how they do tokens. So when you click on design tokens there, yes, and scroll down, they actually have like some do's and don'ts example. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on this.
Here, use design tokens with names and descriptions that fit your specific situation. Color, icon, information. Don't use a token just because the colors appear to match. This can break the experience in other themes. I love this very much.
Yeah, me too.
Like this is the best parts about Atlassian design system. They're very, I guess IBM also does this very well. They also have a, was it Carbon? I think it was called Carbon, right?
I don't remember.
I think IBM's design system is called Carbon, and I'm not sure, like they're gonna correct us in the chat. But this also uses the same mechanism of semantic keywords, basically. Like this needs to be icon information. Like it might look like it's the brand color, it's not though. Like that's not semantic. And I think, yeah, thank you, Tamai. I think I also don't really like primary and secondary names for color in design systems or whatever frameworks. Just doesn't make any sense to me. Like call it information and warning or success, but not primary and secondary, because the primary action might be delete in a view, and your primary color should not be green. Like delete should never be green. It's more often than not, it's going to be red. So,
and again, like it's about this decision, right? You want to make sure that when features are built, they are built with the intent of a color and not having to guess, okay, which color is this again?
Right. So they should basically mean the same thing to everyone in the team.
So on this particular one, I want to also mention it's not all also a silver bullet, but there are also some, let's say not drawbacks, but pitfalls. Because the more precise you make your tokens or your properties, the more you need to make sure that you hit the right use cases. And the problem is once you don't have the right variable at hand, you have a problem. And then it's very easy to then fall back to some other variable that might not actually be used, but it just looks like in the design, or it just looks like it's the right color. And this is like the advantage of having fewer tokens, because then the chance is less likely that you accidentally use the wrong one. Yeah, just something I wanted to mention.
Oh, interesting. So how about this? I wanted to talk about like the number of tokens. It's really depressing to me in design systems. Like sometimes you have to fill in like 1,000 tokens. Like that's a lot of the design systems. I think Prime View is one of those. They tout that as a show off for customizability, but it tells me that something is wrong there. At least there should be proper inheritance. And here's a very good example: color, background, danger, bold, hovered.
Why bold? Like, why bold? Okay, why would I need to use bold or not? You know, this is weird.
So here, I think there should be only one token, and there's danger.
Yeah.
We know it's a color, for sure. The second one, background, is a modifier. Like, even if this were success, it should have its own modifier, but background is a modifier. Here, it looks like this is like an object hierarchy. Like there's the object color, it has a property background, this is a color danger, has a color bold.
They will show it further down. They show actually the tree structure, I think.
I don't think you can represent this as a tree. Like this is
this
is how you build CSS in real life. Like it's I'm not against utility classes in this particular, like if you use this in this particular way. Like if you use danger, that's very good. And if you want to say it's background, that's fine. Like add a background, and I know that it's a background color. Like it's a modifier there. That's a good thing. And bold, maybe, but hovered is not a class. It's not a color. It's again another global modifier. Like take whatever color you have and add 20% to luminosity. I don't know. Like you need to have a function. Your designer, the job of your designer is to, and I forced my designers to do this, and I'm super happy with what we are right now at Neol. Your designers should come up with one single way of hover effect, regardless of the background color or the item color. And because it just does not make any sense that this danger is red, but in hover it's green, right? It just doesn't work like that.
It's I have a question for you because I actually haven't seen that in a design system. How would you document in a maintainable way these functions so they cannot be mistaken for like hard-coded values but someone knows, okay, this is a function and not, or like a computed property or not something that's hard-coded?
So we have a specific, I think this is like something that I'm going to reveal on Thursday, but we have a specific CSS, one single CSS file that defines these functions. These are literal SCSS functions for us. And there we have colors SCSS where for each of the main colors, and I guess we have 7 of them, we define the function and the parameter. Like for hover, regardless of the base color, it's this function with this parameter, like darken 20% or saturation 10%. It's that function. And then like it applies to all the colors. And that was really difficult in design to pick the right shades of root colors so that they all fit well with 20% darkened value, because like that's the entire reason for why we have these new color functions in CSS, right? Because RGB is very difficult, or HSL is very difficult to maintain. Like saturation or luminosity doesn't work the way you expect, especially when it comes to brightness and contrast. Those change all the time. That's why you have LCH and OKLCH. And maybe like if there's interest in the audience, we could talk more about like these color functions. But I forced the team to do that, and they did a very good job of coming up with a single function that applies to all 7 colors, and we use that.
Nice.
So the only thing the developer has to care about is the root color, and you can tell if it's red or teal. You can tell, and then you just apply that, and you don't worry about hover or background or whatever, because we know in background it's 10% opacity, and you don't have to care about it.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
I don't know. This if this is a tree structure, hovered, it's not a good idea as a different item. Where does it show it? Is it all design tokens or?
I'm trying to find it. I saw this earlier. They had a literal. Was it all tokens? Let me just see. They had like a literal JSON there. Nah, it's not all the tokens. It was like one JSON file where they showed it.
See, this does not work for me. So like these are just random colors, and then for magenta they have obviously light value and dark value for light theme and dark theme. It looks like there's a pattern: blue 600 500 600 500 600 500, and then neutral. It's very difficult to get neutral colors work in light and dark, and so this is totally fine to have 600 and 600. You can have specific cases for gray, but what is this? Like, this is 500 300 700 400, and then we're back to 600 500. I'm not sure. Like, I would very much like there would be a again another function behind these things, so that you wouldn't have to manually map these to specific shades. Like that function could be whatever your base value is, the dark value is minus 100, except for the neutral colors, of course, and that you cannot really personally modify the shades of like what 500 means and 600 means, because that can break your design. Like you need to have a proper function there. I don't know. I'm so like.
What I found interesting, they also have like a section on motion, but it's like very bare bones. I found. And motion is also an interesting one. So, for example, CSS allows you to basically say via a media query, do not allow motion unless someone basically said, you can say, well, the person didn't care, unspecified, do motion. And I see a lot of websites actually disregarding this. I tested this where you can like set disable motion, and particles fly everywhere. You know, you have some random automated zooming and scrolling,
right?
And it's like, okay, like someone with like some health problems, they will have some difficult time here.
Right.
So I think those things should be more defined in terms of like, okay, how are you supposed to build a website if motion is reduced? Like how are you gonna build it? Because it's a different experience sometimes.
So the way I look at motion, I mean, it's very cliche and typical, but the way I look at it is it should be a visual gimmick, a pleasantry on top of what you actually offer as a feature. So you should be able to disable it. Like just remove all the transitions, just set transition duration to 0, add 10 importance for all the layers of your CSS, and kill all of your motion, and your web page should still work. And for example, something that just came to my mind in like, how do you make sure that you give the same functionality or expectation or reality to both people who prefers motion and who prefers reduced motion. That is the CSS media rule, I guess, prefers reduced motion. Imagine I don't know if it's here, but maybe this, right? Like when I'm clicking, they're shrinking and they are going out of the screen, right? Now, if you didn't have motion, this would simply disappear. And then there would be a break in your visual periphery. Like this is not that big, but imagine this is opening a full page model window. Sometimes you use motion to reduce the surprise element and to make, like, that's why you use a smooth transition from, I don't know, a button to a full page element, so that people are not like, oh, wait a second,
where is it going?
Where was I, and what is this thing, where did this come from? And if you remove motion in your CSS, you're going to notice these breaking experiences. And my point was, finally I can announce it, my point is, you should not have this kind of experiences that are like obliterating what you see on the screen and completely changing it when you turn off the transition duration. Like, you might think that it's okay because you're using a transition, but if you turn it off and if it's like killing your attention, you should remove it from your web page. Like, that's not a good way to build a web page. So yeah,
I also think it depends. I think it can have its use cases, because it depends like who your audience is. Like, I don't know, if you build a website for an animation library, as an example, well, it would be kind of weird not to have any like just as a stupid example, but you know what I mean. Like, I think there are also use cases for that. Yeah.
But look at this one, for example, random remove. This, I think, illustrates somewhat what I'm talking about, because when you click random remove, like, it's very difficult without animation. It's very difficult to notice what changed on the screen. Like, you have to read them again. When there's animation, I mean, I don't know why they have this weird 100 millisecond duration, but when you have a little bit longer transition duration, you can at least see the ones that are closing, that are like going off screen. But if you remove that animation, it's instant and you're like, something's changed on the screen and I don't know what, because there are like 7 elements here and they all look very much the same. So this kind of things, like, it's very difficult. I don't know.
By the way, quick disclaimer, if you hear a cat in the background, that's my cat Hamilton, who misses his cat. Who misses his daddy. So please have mercy. He's all right. He's just not allowed in this room. So
resizing motions.
Ooh.
What is this? Okay, this is nice. I like it.
Yeah. I also wanted to I wanted to say, like, motion can also be used to some extent for emotion. So I think sometimes motion can be quite a quite nice tool to have it like selectively in your app, to have a particular feature that builds excitement or emotion.
Right.
There was this fun challenge, like button challenge, like a submit button challenge that I saw on Twitter. Unfortunately, I don't have the tweet at hand, but some of these submissions, they were quite interesting, where someone did a button that you need to click very, very fast, and it like it starts to like pulsate, and it's like a piñata kind of thing. And then if you click often enough, it like explodes and submits. And it kind of like sounds silly. Okay, why do you need this? But when you actually use it, you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, this is kind of, I'm I'm experiencing something here, right? And
You
for
are
these kind of things,
you're going to love this one around the tool we use for our meetings or co-working sessions. It has a specific mode that's called campfire mode, and it does exactly this. Like, you click at the center of the screen and you're starting a fire. But if you hit too seldomly, the fire will not start. If you repeatedly click it, it's going to start. If you click it more, it's going to grow. And like that is, and of course, like that's a social activity as well. Like everyone starts clicking it, so they start the fire, and then you kind of try to keep the fire going. So I completely agree with that, like emotional aspect of motion. But again, that should be still, I believe that should be an addition.
Yeah, like an Easter egg. Like,
yeah.
A good example that I also have that I love. It's my favorite like Easter egg in all of UI. I find because it made me chuckle. So some people might be aware that there's this tool called Discord, which is similar to Slack but for gamers. And Discord uses a very interesting design language where they try to gamify everything, and it seems sometimes quite unnecessary, right? But gamers love it. And one thing I discovered is the reply button. You can like reply, and it's like a little arrow circle on the side that pops up. But you can click it and nothing happens. But if you click it often enough, the reply button gets dizzy and starts to spin.
Okay.
And it gives the UI. It's in Discord, and it gives the UI almost like a little character. You feel like, oh, this is an organism I'm interacting with. It's like something that reacts if I annoy it. You know, it's kind of interesting how they do it.
So when I click the reply button, what happens? It focuses me on the message.
Yeah, and you can like click the. Let me just. I closed Discord now, but let me quickly open it up.
I learned something.
Yes, so if I say a reply, or is it only on mobile? Let me see. I think it might be a mobile only experience. Yes, it's only on mobile. So mobile, you can swipe to reply, swipe left to reply.
Yes.
And there, if you do it like often, the reply icon that's next to it on the right side starts to spin. But it's very like you need to do it like often, and you need to spam it, and then it starts to spin, which is like a little thing. So I think it's only on mobile.
But so when I swipe it, it automatically opens again the keyboard. When I do it again, it closes the keyboard.
So keep it. Yes. So keep it pressed. So don't swipe, but keep the thumb up and swipe it like very often. And they.
So is it? Do I do it like this? Wait. Like this?
Yes. Yes.
Doesn't happen.
For me,
yes, it does. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's doing a backflip.
Yes. Because it gets dizzy. And it's so unnecessary. Like, nobody notices this. But when you notice it, it's like, wow. It can be even very subtle, right? And I think having these like subtle behaviors with animations, this was my whole point. I think animations need to be so subtle that you don't necessarily realize them. But summed up, they are like little tiny layers of experiences that make it feel very, very nice. And you can't actually tell why it feels nice. And if you overdo it, it's immediately noticeable, and then it's already too much. But I think it needs to be very, very subtle, very gentle. And then animations can be extremely helpful.
I think that is experience. That is also, at least for me, the definition of the difference between iOS and Android when it comes to animations. On iOS, they're smooth, and really like natural. On Android, you feel like it's an animation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, okay. We were talking about tokens, and then Atlassian design system. One thing that caught my interest is they call it lozenge. Like instead of calling it pill
Yeah, like every other thing on the planet.
or a tag, right? This is either a tag or a
Yeah.
pill component. They call it lozenge as if people would know. Like
I actually don't know what it means. I'm so sorry, but I don't know what it means.
It's like pills that you suck on for like your throat and stuff. Like when your throat is wonky when you're getting a cold.
Yeah.
They're like orange flavored and stuff. Like orange
Strepsils in the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have Strepsils.
I guess that would be like, this is an American thing. Lozenges.
Oh, talking of names, one thing I also forgot to mention earlier when we talked about the benefit of design systems, naming things is hard. And when you do not agree on naming, people will make up their own names. And especially when discussing features or even new features, it can be very frustrating if, for example, engineering uses different terms to design and product also has a different definition because this is maybe what the customers are acquainted to. And a design system can really help to, it's like a dictionary. These are the names for our things that we have, and even for our behaviors or for our flows or whatever. And it can even be used as a correction tool. When someone uses the wrong name, you can say, it's called this, see the design system. And people start to remember.
Yes. Yeah. I agree, naming. And this is actually what I wanted to bring up next. What do you think about this is bold?
I think HTML, just my opinion here, I think HTML should define the structure of something, not the appearance, ever.
This is like
boldness to me is appearance.
But how would you do it then? Like clearly you want this in like regular color, whatever, and this is the bold color. And here, bold is not bold in the font, but in the color.
I see. So maybe the naming is a bit confusing here. Because this is more of like a type kind of thing, or like a color itself, right?
Yeah.
It's like I see now. Yeah, they have this like more intense color, and since it's dark mode, it's inverted.
Yeah.
Because I think in light mode it has like an outline. And
no, it's the same. In light mode.
They changed it. They changed it. It used to have like an outline a year ago or so. Okay. That's an interesting one, right? Because you want to kind of, you still want to have the color, and how are you going to, you can't decide this in CSS, right? This decision, you can't make it there. So I would argue it's similar to icons, right? An icon, you pick the icon in HTML and not in CSS, like which one to use, right?
But like, is it okay as an attribute here? And how about the name is bold? Like, why is it not
like
just bold? It could be bold,
it should
right?
Be bold. Yeah, just bold.
There's appearance moved. Okay, interesting. I like the name moved better than yellow or warning.
Sorry, what is moved?
It's represented status for items that have changed and require attention. Busy, blocked, missing, warning. I think it's kind of okay that they have this name.
Moved. Okay. Yeah.
So max width 100. It's fine, I guess.
Yeah.
But I really have questions about this is bold. Now I want to go and look at the rest of the design system. If Like, if is all of their, and I'm pretty sure it is, but are all of their Boolean attributes
Like is
starting with
something.
is? Maybe like in inline edits, there could be examples.
XCSS. Ah, beautiful.
Not okay. I mean, how is this readable, you guys? What are you doing?
Well, the argument is it's all in one file and all in one language, so it's readable. But
that's also
I think
Vue.js. Looks better.
I think Vue.js just makes it better because it uses the languages that are made for these things, but all in one file.
On confirm placeholder. So what would be a Boolean property?
I actually like the point Tamai says. I think making bold and emphasizing are different things, and it's missing on the design system. Yes, like the concept of like emphasizing an element or bringing attention to it, right? I think one thing we actually haven't chatted about at all. I love that topic is signal to noise ratio.
Oh, yes.
Of what we actually pay attention to.
Right.
And there's, for example, I'm a big fan of the 60-30-10 rule on colors, where the idea is basically that you don't want to make everything colorful, because then the problem is, where do you look, right? And I think what Atlassian is doing, since they have quite a busy UI already, they need this additional layer of attention grabbing to basically make sure, oh, by the way, everything is like colorful, but really pay attention to this thing because it looks different to everything else.
Right.
Yeah, it's quite an important topic also in game design or game visuals, because there has been a recent debate that the signal noise ratio is too much signal, basically, and that we need more noise actually in the visuals, because the player is guided too much, and it actually takes away from exploring and discovery.
Oh, I see what you mean. I see. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
But for product, you want to sell something often, right? Or you want to guide the user through an experience. Right. So you don't want them to like randomly click around and figure it out or not, and then they leave.
Finally found it.
Yeah.
Is disabled. Button appearance is disabled. Is selected. So can something be both disabled and selected and loading?
How does something look if you use all the is properties available? I'm curious.
Exactly. So there's spacing compact. So see, like if state is orthogonal, they make it into another prop. But they claim then these are not orthogonal. Where is the, is it here? No. Example TSX? Yep.
Yeah.
So is loading is what? What are you talking about? Come on.
It's like, nope. Sorry, mate.
Like,
they want.
Why?
Yeah.
Sign in with GitHub. Okay, I'm gonna stop screen sharing.
Yeah. So none of your credentials get revealed here.
Yes.
Because this is one of the things, right? When back to the let's build a new feature discussion. How do you know which of these is toggles you need to then use? Do you then have to go to the designer every time to ask, or is it obvious from the feature that is it like, it's this kind of feature, so I need to use these is toggles? Like, this is the problem I have with this approach, because again, there are a lot of ambiguities that you have, or decisions you need to make as someone who builds the feature.
I guess so. So it's is selected here and then is disabled, right? There you go.
It is bold. Does it also work? It's bold.
Oh, there's another is bold, right? Is bold.
Yeah.
No, it's not on the buttons. At
Ah,
least not in the loading button.
so not all components have all the attributes. Interesting. So I need to then understand, okay, which one is supported when.
So what? Wait, was there is bold here? Is bold? No, buttons don't have is bold. It was the other component. The
chip thing.
Yeah, chip component, right? At Neol we call it chip, for example.
Yeah, it's my favorite. This is also how I would call it, chip.
But here's the problem.
I like chips.
This waits here. No, here. This state is disabled, so I remove it. Its loading button is selected. First, how can you select the loading button? But anyway, is disabled. So see, the disabled of is selected and regular buttons are the same.
Yeah.
So you should know that disabled is overriding selected.
Yeah.
Should that be the case? If so, why can I do this? Like if this is overriding,
by the way,
this.
These are the kind of things when you add them to your design system, they can cause friction.
Yeah.
At scale. Like it's just statistics, right? Okay, you have like a team of 3 and they know, okay, it's this thing. But let's say you want to roll this design system out across like thousands of engineers.
Mm-hmm.
At least one of them eventually will have this problem, and there will be then suddenly these points of frictions that you can just avoid by not having these kind of things. But yeah.
Look at this thing, should fit container. It does this extra with.
It's like it's lyrical tailwind CSS. You write sentences.
Yeah. So should fit container, and then I want to do spacing compact, or none. And why is it like, what is this thing? I said spacing none.
Doesn't work.
Oh, appearance subtle link. Okay. Appearance primary, appearance subtle link. So if I do subtle link.
Oh,
okay.
There was some magic. Okay.
Yeah. Now this is a button that we can click. I mean, this is kind of okay because it's like should fit container. Does its job. Spacing does its job. When you say compact or just remove it, I think it's fine. But I don't think this is selected, is disabled, is loading are fine. Like, what does it mean that a button is disabled and loading at the same time? Right? Like, does it even make sense? Is loading is disabled? Does this make sense?
So I've seen actually this pattern quite often. Good example is Deliveroo. When you place your order, it says placing order, and the button that you clicked becomes disabled, and there's a spinner inside.
Why?
Because probably they want to avoid you clicking it again.
Yeah, but this already does it.
Yeah. But it's maybe because the blue language, or the blue color signals that you can still interact with it. So,
but
I don't know. Yeah.
But no, see, like I'm clicking it right now. There's no click effect. But if I remove is loading, there's hover.
Yes.
And click. So like I already have that impression first because it's the spinner, and second, it doesn't respond to my clicks. So why do you also need is is disabled here.
Yeah.
I think this is bad design. Like, this is not good design.
Or at least, if you were to decide that you want a different color when it's disabled, it should be part of the is loading.
I think this should better be state loading, state disabled, and default.
Yes.
So
I actually like using
orthogonal.
like variables or properties. Yeah.
Yeah. This is very important. I would like to stress it again. I think this should be orthogonal. Is loading and is disabled should be, and is selected should be orthogonal. You cannot select something disabled. Like, imagine a scenario where the developer by mistake can select a disabled button. Like, the design system should not allow that. You cannot select a disabled button. So that means this state is orthogonal. Like, they are mutually exclusive. So you have to represent it like this: state disabled, selected, or loading.
Yeah.
I don't know why they did it with Booleans, but it's just not a good idea.
Maybe it was easier to implement somehow for them, but
maybe still not sure. And okay, keyboard navigation is there. It's very good.
Nice.
Tab navigation is also there. Very good. So see, this is why you should use a design system, because it's very difficult and tedious to program this. Even if you're not using a full-on design system, you should use a components library or a component that supports this keyboard navigation. I'm just navigating it via the keyboard right now.
And this is also what people often forget. There is not just like navigation inside the component, but also like via tab that you can maybe skip through the entire UI. And then also disabled elements might need to be skipped as well, because you can't interact with them. So there are all these things that unfortunately don't always come out of the box, but you need to actually build them into your design system.
Right. So what do you think about this? I think this is something you'd like because it's composition. Like, there's split button that requires a button and a drop-down menu that I think just brings on this thing.
Oh, I would love to not put a button in there, but a drawer or something else, just to see what happens.
How about this? It actually changes orientation.
Oh, wow.
Like, see? On scroll as well. Really good, right?
Nice.
I'm going to try something else. Is this a... so what I'm going to try this. Bear with me. We promised some live coding, and this is going to be that live coding, all right?
Okay, let's figure this out.
What I want to do is, when I do a set interval and increase the number of items here, will it reorient itself? Right?
I see what you're saying. Reactively.
Yes. So this...
Sorry, I got a dunk on React if I can.
Option 1, 2. So import React from React, and do I do something like use state? I think this is it's like this, right? And then you do const I set I use state 0. I don't know. And then use effects. And I know I'm committing a crime right now, but I'm gonna do set interval.
Look away, folks! Don't do this at home. Arman is just having fun right now. Please, we need like a disclaimer right now. Otherwise, people clip this segment and say, "Look what Arman teaches us."
Yeah, this is use effect is not defined. Why is it not like this? Oh, use state use effect.
I need to import it. Yeah.
Oh shit. And
yeah, 1 second or something. Yeah.
5 seconds.
5 seconds.
But I think we already broke it. Okay.
Ooh.
And then if I put I here, I should be able to see it, right? No. we're having like, I'm sure we're having a
Yeah.
an infinite loop somewhere.
Yeah. Can you maybe pass I as a required?
Page unresponsive.
I
Wait,
think you need to pass I as a required to use effect.
no, that's why I did it.
Because you are changing it. I remember there was some weird logic with use effect where you need that, but
Clear interval.
yeah. let's
see. I cannot program React. All right, it just does not work. Folks in the chat.
The poor task queue is overloaded.
I mean,
oh my god. This is the beauty with React. You can just like break stuff.
It should be like
this. Yeah.
What the hell
need a
I'm
function.
thinking. Yeah. All right. Refresh. Come on. It has to work now, right? Like it has to work.
Something is happening.
Why does this not work? Do you have any ideas?
So use effect will be called when the component mounts. So it mounts. You say interval is set interval. Which is the yeah.
It works.
Yes.
Does work. Haha.
Yes.
I can program React.
Yes. Here we go. Why didn't it work? What did you change? Or did it just magically work?
I think the reason was like converting this into a function.
Yeah.
But anyway, works now. And it also like cleans it up correctly. So it's great. Anyway, so what else? What I wanted to do here was practically doing a loop here.
Yeah.
What is it? Array from
like
how does this work?
It's 0 to range.
Yeah. How does this thing work? I don't know how to program JavaScript. Okay, I let Copilot do this for me.
I had this thing with Godot where pathfinding was changed during the game jam. Well, I did a game jam with pathfinding, and pathfinding was completely changed to build the navigation polygon. And it's live on stream. I spent 2 hours. And what I actually had to do was select a existing polygon and click a button. It was literally like a button click that I had to do. But it took me 2 hours, and someone in the stream pointed me to it. And I was like, come on. Yes. Length.
Oh, there is a map.
And yes.
Directly here inside. It's very good. And this should
then
be drop down item.
Yeah. Option and then I. Yeah.
I drop down item. Okay.
Oh.
Wait, what? Why?
That doesn't work.
Why doesn't it work though? Nice.
Yeah. Now it works.
And now why don't we see the? But of course we started to like let's refresh this. And this.
I love this.
Why don't I see the I here? Oh, maybe this should be like, much better. Okay, but of course, what I need here is like this should be somewhere in the middle of the screen. How do I even do that? Like, how do I pass in CSS to this thing? Like, can I do something like margin top equals?
Oh, for this you need Tailwind.
What? No.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
How does this work? So I guess we need to go back and
I mean, there's a
see
CSS file. You could just edit there and just like wing it. But
where is the CSS file.
oh no, there's no CSS file.
Yeah, there is no CSS file.
Ooh, okay.
What is this thing? Design system, new button.
You could add that. I see an index HTML. You could add like a style tag to the.
Yeah, no, come on, no. I want to use something that's here. So where do I find it? Foundations?
It's actually now a good example, right? Let's say, oh, Arman just joined Atlassian. He wants to style it. Okay, how do you find it?
Space 800. So how do I add it as a margin? Components.
Maybe it's on the button as an example, but oh no, we didn't use a button. Yeah.
Oh, there's literally button new. Are you kidding me? New and ready to use. What will provide comms and support for animation? What is this thing? Is this?
It's new.
Thank you. I got that.
Yes. Truncation.
There is this layout thing, layout grid that's deprecated. There is.
Yeah.
What else is there? There's flex.
Ooh.
There's XCSS. Some styles, and then we add it as X. So do you think this is going to work when we do this?
X, yeah. So it supports it, right? So it should.
Yeah, it's this one.
Property.
I mean, I don't know if we have AtlasKit primitives here, but then let's do this. Something.
And also to people who might watch this and never did CSS or JavaScript before, this is, I think, one of the strengths of JavaScript, how accessible it is. Like you can just like open it in the browser and code. With Java or C++, it's not that easy. You can't just like do this. In my experience, at least.
Can we do something like this? Please work. Please work. And it's not really working.
Nope. XCSS.
What am I supposed to do here?
So it
says
XCSS,
no,
right?
it's of course we're gonna use tokens space 800. And that also won't work. Is this? It's not assignable to what? It
so it doesn't support that. So split button maybe doesn't support it.
But like, what supports it then? Where do I use it?
So
do I have to use
a button?
No, I guess we have to use a box around this. So box XCSS. This is even hard to type. Like my fingers are like XCSS because it's like one next to one another.
Yes.
Styles. So I do this, and then go down another box here. Nope.
Okay.
Guys, please.
By the way, in Vue, you
finally,
would just
finally.
In Vue.js, you just add like 3 lines of CSS on the bottom, and it works out of the box. No imports.
Yes.
Yes.
So now I can finally move it to. What if I want more than 1,000?
Good question.
Like, how does
I guess you can't because they only define a limited number, right?
No, it works. 300 pixels works.
Oh, nice. Oh, okay.
Finally. Okay, here. Wait.
Oh, yes.
300 is too much. Then 250 because I wanted to open. Yeah. See,
it doesn't work.
this is my
It
problem.
doesn't work. It doesn't work.
This is not okay, you guys. This is what happened? Did you see?
Yes.
Like, I'm gonna do it
this is
again.
cool.
So like, we have this, and it's like I need to be able to scroll, right? Like,
I think we need to have, we need to make a new format. We call it "We Break Your Design System," and we have a time that says how long it will take us
to break your design.
to break. Yes, we will find a way.
So like, I'm just gonna scroll very slowly. I'm doing this motion on my trackpad, so I'm just trying to scroll.
Okay.
At the bottom. Why am I out of scope? Yeah. All right. So, okay, this works. This is not bad. All right. But
Okay.
after some time, it scrolls the entire page. But of course, why did you like
React is like, oh, hang on a minute. I guess I need to reformat everything, and bam.
No. It's like I'm gonna demonstrate it again. So see, this was a problem. So
so the scroll bar. So the scrolling the viewport triggers it.
Yes, scrolling the viewport triggers it. But
so there must be an event listener on the viewport scroll, maybe, that then does the reformat.
Yes, but the problem is, yeah, okay, scroll kind of does it. Yeah.
So I guess so what they do is they have like an event listener on like resize and scroll, and only then they update the position of that.
But it's not on resize. Well, it is on window resize. It's not on element resize. And it should have been on element resize. That's practically my point. And this is also not okay. Like, just because the parent container can go out of sight, like it's longer, you should practically not let option 10 be like left out of sight. It's not okay. This dropdown, whenever it's opening, should always be visible. And in native components, you can do that, of course. When it's a native dropdown, it can appear on top of the original window. That's why in screen sharing you didn't see the native dropdown, because it's actually another view in macOS and not in Chrome. So like you never see this problem. In CSS, of course, you cannot do that. So what you can do instead is never let this view get out of the viewport. And this is, I wanted to bring this example because this is literally what I built last week at Neol.
Oh, interesting.
And we had practically the same issue. This thing can grow on its own, and I didn't really want to add an event handler, reformat when this is growing. What is more important to me is this box should know it's being resized, because this also has a resize event. There's a resize observer in the browser that you can use. And
adding elements to it resizes it, right?
Yeah, when there is a size change here like this, it just does, it calls the same handler, so it reorients itself. This is practically, and I don't know why this happens, by the way. Like, why is it dancing? But because there's enough space, I think. But anyway, so this should also run on internal resize, and this box, including its shadows, should always be visible. So yeah, this is very weird. Like,
interesting.
And
by the way, this is something. I just want to say this should be something in the year 2024 that no web engineer who just wants to build products should even think about, in my opinion.
Yes.
But I think instead of that, we build React rather than solving these problems. Because these are the problems people have, like when they build products, not,
right.
Oh, will my, like how reactive is my element?
Did you see what happens? I'm going to do it again. It's a very good way to break people's design systems. So let's, oh, no, I did it wrong. Let's wait for 30 seconds. Oh, no, I have to open it and then wait for 30 seconds. Yes. And then I'm going to scroll. And it's going to jump to the left for no apparent reason. But maybe it's even going to happen with this. So I'm going to start scrolling. I'm scrolling now. These options are fine.
Why could this be? I think
I'm at the end, and see, I cannot see the last ones. And then it jumped to the left. Like, what is this, dude? Just don't do this. This is not good.
I think I know why. I might know why. Because the 30 character is a bit wider. I think it's like 1 pixel wider than in 29 because it's not monospaced.
But so there's option 1.
The width.
Like,
true.
Option 1 is wider than all.
Which is way wider.
Yeah.
Huh?
See?
Okay.
Like,
I really want to understand, like, what is, because that would make sense, right? Because it like pushes it and then unless it doesn't trigger for some reason on option 1.
Atlasing problems. This is not my problem. I think we've spent enough time on Atlas.
Create a bug in Jira.
No, I generally like some approaches they have, especially with respect to like names. When it comes to naming things, I really like it, and I like the oh. Do you see the flicker?
Yeah. Caesar warning.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I shouldn't have really done that. I like their design as well. Like, it's weird to say this, but I really like their design.
It used to be very, very bad.
Yes.
But they improved it. Yeah.
This is very consistent. And they have at least some, like, they acknowledge that they need patterns. Like forms. Right? Long forms. Multi-step forms.
This is great. As a developer, I can go read this and build a feature.
Yeah.
And the designer can focus on what they can do best and like focus on evolving this and maybe come up with new amazing ways of interacting with the product.
Yep.
So everybody does what they do best.
Is it possible that I broke the design? Like, what is this? Yes, I don't know, I broke it. I was playing with paddings in that other screen and it broke the design.
Oh, it's so funny.
No, it's still broken. It might be because of the levels. No.
Interesting.
Okay, guys, what's going on here? What is this?
Interesting. Maybe some of that XCSS leaked into this tab and
how would you know, right?
Your entire computer, yeah.
Table tree. No, but I really like their design, except for this icon that's almost touching.
Yeah.
The text here. I mean, what if this were a T?
It's even overlapping. The outline is overlapping.
So telegraph. It's like almost touching. I think T is the widest character that I know. Like that hits the edge of the print area. Yeah. Yeah, it's basically touching. So interesting design choice. Not sure I support that. But this is very difficult to do. Google also struggles with this a lot. Things on hover, when they have some padding around them, like it looks really awkward if they don't have any, like if they have more space, it looks awkward. But
Yeah.
that space is necessary when they hover. Apple does this very well in its toolbars. Most of the toolbars, for example, in the Mail app, you're going to see that they get a background on hover, but also with enough spacing, and it looks good. So they somehow solved this. Like, this looks really awkward. Like, just don't do this. This is not good design. Your box touches, like, you're in the personal space for this character.
Yes.
Just back out a bit. I like this. I like the consistency of their design. So whatever you build, whichever framework you pick something that gives you a consistent design. I think that's more important than all. And I'm sure we're like, we could look at a couple more other design systems here, and we wouldn't be able to find this consistent design. And I would love if they had like examples, right?
Like that are not Jira even. It would be
Yeah,
interesting to see like some
build Jira or Trello or like any other, like Gmail.
Maybe we can do this next time. We can use this and just like build our little UI just to show.
I actually have a repo for that, and I can also show it off, maybe as a teaser for the next episode. And because we're already like 2.5 hours in, maybe we can start something with Pico CSS. This is one of my favorite frameworks, and I just love it. Minimal CSS framework for semantic HTML. This is something I've been touting my entire life when I started using CSS with CSS Zen Garden back in the year, I don't know, 2002 or something. So this is basically what it looks like. Like, you just write this.
Oh, so clean.
Actual real HTML.
And the minimalist in me is just like,
yeah, it gives you something that looks good. And they have
bashing on Tailwind.
So it should look like this, like form, input, button, and not like this to achieve the same thing. But they have, I don't know where, user scenarios.
Oh, I like this. The matrix.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Large scale projects with many components low. Maybe. They had a couple of examples here, of course, like there's huge examples. A pure HTML example without dependencies. And like, you can build this thing entirely in HTML. And I built a UI that looks like Facebook just by using Pico CSS and like building on top of this. And it looks really cool. Looks really, really cool. With like the minimal
I saw it's using it's using CSS layers, so you can like overwrite everything, which is quite nice.
Is this using CSS layers?
I think so, yes.
That would be amazing. I guess I was using version 1 and it didn't use layers yet because layers were not a thing back then. Because the only
Let's see.
The only complaint that I had here was that it was a little bit bloated. Like the code, the CSS code looked a little bit bloated here. Like, this is something I personally don't really prefer. On the right, you can see like Pico H2, and then like this is all coming from its own styling. And then if you want to like customize this, like, see, all of the variables are here. If you want to customize them, like, it's weird, right? Like,
Yeah.
It's overrides and everything. I just, if possible, I just don't want to see any of this in my
Yeah.
CSS. When I look at select an element here on the right panel, I just want to see my own CSS that I wrote.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
not
Yes.
trying to customize this. But anyway, like here's how it looks. It's very cool.
By the way, quick correction. I just checked. I mixed things up. I looked at Prime View that has
Yeah.
CSS layers. Pico
So
doesn't.
Prime View actually works with layers, and I kind of like that. I don't know if they had any examples here.
They have, I think, a layers page, but
no, I just wanted to, maybe, I don't know, like we should pick its documentation for one thing. I don't know, cascade select. And I really like this because Prime View pays a lot of attention to keyboard navigation. Like it works with space, it works with really nice.
Oh, nice.
Not sure if it works with tabs. It broke my experience twice. But like it also looks kind of good. I like it.
I'm unpopular opinion here. I might make myself unpopular here, but I'm actually not a big fan of Ripple. I think it's overused because of Google. I don't know.
Yes,
everybody has it.
I hate it. I hate the ripple effect so much. I just wanted to look at their CSS, right? Like when I do something like this. Yeah. So here, at least you have a layer.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a way to hide layers. But like at least from this view. But what you can do is you can like visually train your eye to ignore them.
Yeah.
Like this is layer prime view, I ignore it. And I'm free to override this however I want. There is no specificity problem when I'm using layers. So anyway, I'm sure you didn't have an idea, but I usually do streams of 8 hours, 10 hours, or sometimes more. Without a break. I don't want to drag you.
No, the thing is, I actually like streams, but I had a work day today, and yeah, usually if it was like Saturday, I would like 5 hours plus. That's not a problem.
So, in order to have this visual effect of moving my head, because I had to look at the screen over there, and now I have to look at you. I'm yeah. I'm moving the browser window across my screen. I'm moving the studio across my screen so that like I'm looking at the site. So this was a great stream. I think we established some best practices already. In the next one, I would love to start looking into Pico CSS, show like what I came up with there in terms of design and how clean it looks. And maybe we can start programming our own in Vue.js. Maybe we could look at like Prime View and maybe Ant design. I don't know. But I would love to get like building something from scratch so that, we can really see for ourselves whether we can put that state variable in the button. Because in Prime View as well, for example, they have disabled, and I don't know how they do loading, but they have the disabled tag, which might be a problem in terms of orthogonal state. So like we can discuss this in more detail, and we can geek out all aspects of it. Just for the audience's information, designing or implementing a design system takes tens of engineers, at least a year. So it's not easy. These open source projects are doing great. We're not here to bash them, of course. Like there are things we would do differently, but that doesn't mean they did a terrible job. I'm amazed by all of the examples that I see. Even the the energy that goes into Tailwind, even though I hate it, I respect it a lot. That's a lot of energy. So thank you very much, Spicy Thunder. I guess you earned this. I'm gonna promote that comment. So yeah, it takes a lot of time and effort, and I respect every single minute these people spend on these frameworks, especially if it's open source, because that is like the real vigilante of our times. So we're going to be talking about our opinions of design systems and what we would do differently. But again, take that as an inspiration, as an addition, as a contribution to these frameworks and libraries, and not a, I don't know, mock or making fun of them or anything. In our next episode, I don't know when that will be. I am traveling next week and the week after, I think. No, I guess I'm just traveling next week. So the week after, we might have another episode. If you're up for it, Miguel, I would love to host you again on this show. On this show, as if we have a show, at least let's say on this channel, where we talk about design systems and maybe start building at least our own, or start geeking out building our own.
Yes, would love to.
Thank you so much for coming. I think this is a very common behavior from hosts. Do you have any advice to share with the younger members of the audience?
Yes. So when you start out in your career, you hear a lot of opinions and a lot of best practices and a lot of do this, don't do that. And you start following that. And it's I think it's called like cargo cult culture, when you just do what's best practice and, oh, let's use React because everybody uses React, or let's use, I don't know, Tailwind because everybody uses Tailwind. And don't worry, because eventually you realize that I say this, I'm from Germany, so we have the saying, people are just cooking with water. So there is nothing like magical about it, actually, the more you interact with these things, and you just need to understand what tools you actually need for the right job, and getting this like feeling. I call it feeling because it's like intuition. You know, I probably need this tool for this job. But till then, experiment and yeah, you cannot fail if you try. Just try things out, and yeah, that would be my advice.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Are you sure you didn't really script this?
No.
Amazing. No. Amazing. This was a very valuable session for me as well. It was really fun doing this. And we should focus on our own skills. We shouldn't be distracted from our goal. Most of us not listening to the right guys. Yeah, I guess I can second that. And thank you so much again. I have to say this was well beyond my expectations. We've covered a lot of ground, and I'm very happy that we were able to do this. I'm also extremely happy and honored to have you tomorrow at NEOL. We're going to start with our onboarding. And
very excited.
I love doing a segue to the discussions that we discuss in the beginning of the stream, or our meetings all the time, because you said, I don't like this discrepancy between front-end and back-end, or like the split between a front-end engineer and a back-end engineer. As I guess you'd also agree, like we would like to be called engineers, like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because it feels like you're disconnected from the other side. And I predicted you would feel this way. So for onboarding tomorrow, I prepared something special for you that will hopefully excite you a little bit on this front. I'm not gonna spoil it here. That's for tomorrow, 9 a.m., which is about 12 hours away. So let's get some family time. Let's get some cat Hamilton time. And
Yes.
see you tomorrow. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you learned a couple of things. At least that's the impression that I got from the chat. And I'm looking forward to having you here again in the future episodes. Again, thank you very, very, very much, Miguel, for being with us today.
Likewise. Thank you for streaming with me. Yeah.
Love it. And here I click end stream, and we're going down in 3, 2, 1, end.